Um, First, I'm gonna ask you, what's your last name, if you could spell it, and then your first name and middle initial.
My last name is Vogel. That is Vogel. My first name is Jacob, and my middle initial is L. Stands for Lloyd. 2 L's.
What year were you born?
I was born in 1983.
Where did you live when you became a part of the military?
I lived in, I was based out of Savannah, Georgia, and I trained out of Fort Stewart, which is right down the road, and was stationed at Hunter Army Airfield, which is a small base in the middle of Savannah. It's an airfield, primarily.
What high school did you go to, and from what year did you graduate?
I went to Jefferson City High School, and I graduated in 2001.
When you were in high school, did you ever believe that you would be a part of the military?
No, I never thought I would. That started in college.
What branch of service were you part of?
I was part of the Army, so 1st Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, which is a division of the Army.
How high of a rank were you in your branch? You were...
That's kind of a funny story. I was basically like a E5 sergeant. I was promotable to sergeant, but since I didn't stay in and I knew I was going to get out, I guess I stayed in E4. So I was actually in E4 going into the military because I had my undergraduate degree. And I enlisted just because I wanted to get the action. Just wanted to serve a good contract and get my feet wet and no regrets, and that's what I did. And yeah, I loved every minute of it, and it's good to be out, but I miss a lot of it as well.
How long did it take you to reach that rank?
Well, as I said, I was one of the, we called it salty. I was one of the saltiest E4s of our battalion because I had an E4 right when I got into basic training because I had a college degree. Man, I never cared about what degree or rank I had, or what rank I had, but I was basically, they called me sergeant the last year of my service, even though I didn't, I never fought for it, never pushed for it, because it wasn't about the rank, but yeah, I had it the whole time. And I was proud of it too.
One more about your rank, but what was it like to be at such a high rank in the Army?
Well, when you get to, if you go in as an E1, if you're enlisted, it's a whole different, the officers are the ones that, they're the quarterback of the football team. They call the shots, they call the plays. The enlisted are the guys that actually execute the plan in a different way. So the guys that are kicking down doors and going after bad guys, the enlisted guys are going to do that. And there's a lot of tenured guys within those ranks, and the officers are going to quarterback it in the back. Both are very important. When you get into E4, E5 in my unit, which is a specialist or a sergeant, you have to have your ranger tab. You start to you have privates beneath you, and you start to run your own gun team. Make sure everybody's shooting and doing their drills when you're training. So there comes the responsibility comes on fast.
How'd you get into it? Did you volunteer?
I did. I graduated St. Louis University in December of 2005, and my last semester of college, had a fortunate upbringing. Wasn't spoiled, but I was just a humbling upbringing, and I remember my freshman year, 9/11, and I wanted to serve, so it hit me my last semester of college that I was going to do it. So, graduated in December from college, and in March I enlisted, and off I went to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay. So I'm assuming 9/11 was the reason. Was that the main reason you joined the service?
That, and I watched a lot of those G.I. Joe movies. I watched a lot of the Tears of the Sun, the Bruce Willis stuff, and all the the hardcore macho. Those were fun to watch.
Yeah.
9/11, and knowing I had a buddy, or just thinking of other guys, I didn't want to live my life to no regrets. So the little less than 5 years in the military went by in a blink of an eye as well. I mean, it's fast. You train, we deployed every 6 months continuously, so. And we'd stay overseas for 3 to 4 months at a time and come back. I don't answer all your questions in a rambling story, but
No.
I'll keep answering.
Yeah. Alright.
Where was your basic training at?
Basic training was at Fort Benning, Georgia, which is the home of the infantry. It's outside Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It said that basic training to the individual is broken and that the serviceman is created. And would you agree with this?
Repeat the question.
It said that basic training to the individual is broken and that the serviceman is created during the basic training. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that the question, what you're trying to say is, or what the question means, basic training is designed to break everyone down to their civilian lifestyle and to have uniformity in the military. Everyone's the same, everyone's equal. You know, it's all one big team. So you learn the military way, respect, how to, you make your bed every morning, you run, you do, you eat at the same, you do everything at the same time. So that's what it's for.
How long does basic training last?
It depends what you're going in for, but for me, since I was infantry, which is your basic, one of your biggest basic training programs, infantry lasted 16 weeks. I think they call it OSUT, so one-stop unit training. So you do your basic training, and then you do your AIT, which is your advanced infantry training. So it's all together. I think it's 16 weeks.
Okay. What year did you finish basic training?
Finished basic training in 2006.
When basic training was over, did you have a chance to go home, or did you immediately go to the service?
My parents came for graduation, and I had, I think, a week off with them, and then, I'm not going home. Now, I'll go home eventually, but I had a week off with them or so, maybe 2 weeks, and then I I continued on whatever contract and whatever training I had. But got to spend some time with the family, and then I stayed at Fort Benning and prepared for my next training.
Where were you sent for your advanced training?
I was still at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all together. It's just
Okay.
infantry, and then more rifle. You shoot more weapons and learn more about Humvees and battle tactics and all that stuff.
Okay.
Do you agree that you were put in the right position when you were sent for advanced training?
I do, sure, because that's what I wanted to do. It's some people, back, it ebbs and flows with some people. Some people sign up for the wrong thing, and then the military's come. It's changed and evolved, just kind of like how everything in life does. And if you're in the wrong unit, they can hopefully work with you and transfer you somewhere else. But for me, that's what I wanted. I was 23 at the time, so I was A-okay.
What skills do you remember being taught during your advanced training?
Let's see. They teach you a whole variety of leadership skills under pressure. They try to, you don't eat as much, and lack of sleep, all those things are supposed to stress you out, and you're supposed to perform under that stress, which I believe it serves its purpose, and we did that. Teamwork's a big thing. There's no I in team, so in the military, no one does anything really alone. You always, at least even on my sniper team, you're on a two-man team. You don't just go out by yourself and be some type of what we call a cowboy. So everything's a team. So I could go on, but teamwork, leadership, accountability. No excuses in the military. If you make an excuse, you man up to it, admit it, and you move on. Like your drill sergeants and your instructors always would rather have you admit that you made a decision. You might have made a bad one, but you're a man about it, and you're like, I messed up, and they're like, well, you learn from it, and you move on. They hate excuses.
What was your job at first when you began the military service?
Oh, so after all my training, I went into, after it all, I got to 1st Ranger Battalion, and I was in weapons squad. So I shot the Carl Gustav, I think it's an M88, M83 recoilless rifle. It's basically a rocket launcher. And we really don't really, we really never used it on the battlefield, like overseas, but it's a good weapon to have. But we shot that, and I also manned a 50 cal on our strikers. So I was in the weapons squad, so we were the heavy weapons guys. Which, yeah.
Where did you begin your military service after your advanced training?
That was at First Ranger Battalion.
Okay.
Oh, well, after advanced training, after my infantry was done, I went to airborne school. So I stayed at Columbus, Georgia,
Okay.
at Fort Benning. And then after that, I stayed again for another 2.5 months for what we used to call Ranger Indoctrination Program to get into the Ranger unit.
Mm-hmm.
So they called it RIP. It's changed now because it's longer, and back in the day it was kind of more of a Rambo style training, where they'd smoke you and they like strong Rangers rather than smarter Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had to be smart too, but now it's more, it's probably a better mix now.
Okay.
Were there any like major events happening in the world when you were in the military?
No, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, which is Afghanistan, were pretty much the 2 primary theaters and the things that were happening, I believe, in those 5 years.
From your time in the service, there are a few things you could like remember vividly even today that you could describe for us, just memories you have?
You know, everyone always asks me if, have you shot anybody, or have you shot at someone, or we don't need to get into all of that, but I do remember the first time I got shot at, and it was a nervous experience, and I was providing cover with my sniper partner. It was in Mosul. It was in Mosul, which, if you guys have watched the news over the past couple of years, ISIS took over that city. But we got it back, I think. But I was on a higher building, and I was looking down in the courtyard while our assault force was going to, rush the target, and they were setting up for a breach, and my sniper partner and I were providing overwatch security, because we carry a little ladder and we climb up on the high ground so we can see. It's not like Vietnam where we wear the ghillie suits and you wait for all day to take a shot. We don't do that anymore. We're called assault snipers. So a light flickered on above us, behind us, and it was some bad guys, I guess, and we could see them, they can't see us, and they heard, some movement, because there's about 40 of us out there, and we always operate at night, and it's about 2 in the morning, and they raised an AK-47 at us and started shooting, and naturally they shot at us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before they could get a shot off, we had to,
Yeah.
it's rules of engagement, we're not out there to shoot, innocents, and the good thing about our snipers, we were used a lot because we can see, we have a universal night sight that's attached to our rail system in front of the scope. So we basically have, instead of just your nods, we can see far away with our scope at night.
Okay.
So we would be used to identify hostiles or friendlies. So if I would be used to identify a lot an old man with a walking stick and save his life, rather, because people walking around at night 2 or 3 in the morning, usually maybe lookout guys and bad.
Yeah.
But sometimes they may be, just regular civilians wanting to that's the time they get up, and I don't know. But sometimes I would identify a walking stick, and that's a good day for them, rather than an AK. Because if they're carrying guns and it's 3 in the morning, bad guys.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. So, but yeah. So after the firefight, it was my first experience, and I just thought of it like I was getting shot at by a paintball gun. And then I scratched my head and laughed, because if it hit me, it wouldn't feel like a paintball gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So basically, I just did what I trained to do. As I executed, I took a knee, took cover, returned fire. Lucked out, I didn't get hit. But you don't think about it, so it is true. Like, some people may get nervous, but I think you do so much training, and the Ranger unit, they prepare you so well for battle that I had no problems. I just did what I was trained to do. And then I thought about when I got back, I was like, oh, that's kind of. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you remember any of the names of the people who you served with during your time of service?
Oh, tons of them. Yeah, I keep in. It's a stronger brotherhood than my college friends and some of my high school friends. I mean, I still have my best friends here in my hometown from high school because I live here. College friends, I keep in contact with some, but it's a totally different time of your life. You know,
Yeah.
you have a good time with them, you study with them, but the military guys, they're all over the country. Keep in contact. You know, you got social media. I got their emails. Text them every now and then. So yeah, I got quite a few.
Are any of those people you remember, they still in the service?
Very few, because our unit was very demanding. A lot of guys that I served with served 5 to 8 years tops, and then, I mean, I had 4 deployments. Some of my buddies went over 6 to 8 times, and there are some guys that are still in, but I think they may have went up the chain, and they might be in like a Delta Force now, you know, which there's different names for all those units, but and I can't find those guys as easy anymore. That, you know, that's some secret cool guy stuff.
What impression did the people you served with make on you?
I think the biggest thing, the best thing, especially for a special operations unit in the military, at least for me, is I served with guys from all walks of life. So it wasn't just guys that, you know, went to college, and some guys went in after 18 and they grew up really fast. Some guys even were in trouble, maybe a couple MIPs or whatever they had in high school, and the judge is like, well, you can go to the military, or I'm going to send you to, you know, a couple months in jail or something like that, and they chose the military option. It changed their life. So it's a well-diverse group of guys from all different types of backgrounds. It molds you into, not everybody is robotically the same, but it makes a tight, cohesive group that no matter at the end of the day, it's all about your buddy on the left and your right. You know, when the stuff starts to get pretty, you know, what we call hairy over there, you know.
Yeah.
When the action starts, it's yeah, we're all fighting for a, you know. There's no politics involved at all over there. I mean, we're all on the same team. We all have the same mission to do. It's all about protecting your buddies.
So I'm sorry, I think you already said, but how long did you serve in the military?
I was like 4 years and 6 or 7 months, so a little under 5, 4.5, if you will. Yeah, and it went by really fast.
What was the reason for you to get out, and how hard is it for you to decide to get out?
Let's see, it wasn't hard. A lot of my friends were getting out, I think, as well. Some were going on to, you know, into the civilian workforce. Some were going on to college. I already had college done. I knew probably deep down, I really didn't know I was going to come back to family business, honestly. But I was just ready to try something else, a new adventure, I guess. So there was no stress or hardships coming out because I already had school done. So, and again, yeah, I wasn't going to fall flat on my face. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a little family business that, you know, but at the same time, it was a pretty easy transition, pretty smooth for me. Which it's not like that for everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
So I was fortunate.
Do you remember any other engagements you had while you were in the service?
Yeah, there's all types. I remember, to add a little humor to it, I do remember the first time I went out in Iraq and we loaded up in the Striker. and we were going out and doing a mission. Because in Iraq we take Strikers or Humvees, in Afghanistan you fly more because they don't have a transit system. It's all in the mountains, that's why all the bad guys are there. I mean, they don't have any infrastructure, so it's easier to fight, and they know the terrain. So Afghanistan is on a level of like 1 to 10, like fighting, you know, craziness or whatever. Afghanistan's definitely, you know, up here. Iraq is more down here. Just because Iraq, at least, granted Saddam Hussein was, you know, a bad guy, they at least had some type of government or a structure in place. Afghanistan has nothing really. But I just remember one time we were going out and we had the Navy EOD guys, which are the explosive ordnance device team, and they were telling us what routes we were supposed to take, and they color code them by how much activity they have with EODs and, you know, bombs. So we were supposed to be taking a black route, which meant like there's bombs every day on it. I was like, why would we do that? And my buddies and so I was kind of stressed out, and I was a little nervous. And my buddies looked at me like, man, over here that happens every day. It is what it is. If it's our time, it's our time. So I kind of live by that motto. It is what it is. So I grew up pretty fast. We can't, you know, you never know.
What is your most memorable moment or moments about your time in service?
Overall, besides all the adrenaline rushes overseas and of the missions, which are cool, probably the camaraderie with the guys. You know, whether that be in training or playing cards overseas, passing the time when the weather's bad and we can't operate. We really did, I speak for this particular unit, we really did work, we trained hard and played hard too. You know, played hard, you know, we'd go out fishing because we live by the ocean. It was pretty cool. You know, a couple beers with the guys, you know, we're all of age. But most of the times you'd be shooting guns, you know, doing this and doing that, going overseas constantly. So yeah, it was the life lessons that all the experiences with all your buddies that you go through, and the camaraderie is probably the greatest memories.
What qualities do you think you carried over from the military to get you where you are today?
Let's see. I've kind of touched on them, but you know, it's not rocket science. Again, leadership skills. I mean, but my dad had to tell me to pump the brakes when I got back because in the military there's not a lot of feelings involved. You know, it's not a soft. It's not a a gray area. It's black and white in training. Like you're gonna do as you're told. I mean, again, you can make other decisions overseas. I'm not trying to say we're dumb. I mean, we're just robots, but it was more of a hard society, get stuff done, get things faster. At least in our unit it was. Be accountable for your actions. We had a motto in the Rangers called Rangers Lead the Way, so it was RLTW. Neatness of dress, courteous to superior officers. So they taught us a lot of the stuff that you guys will learn in everyday football or other sports you play. So the list goes on, but it's overall, yeah, it makes fine young men and women.
What are your most enduring memories of your time in service?
Enduring memories. I liked all, whether it be a very, a talked about mission where we had to prep and we prepped for it for a few weeks overseas, and then we completed the mission. It was a big deal. That was exciting. I really enjoyed all the graduations from all the schools I did. Whether infantry, expected, airborne school, expected, Ranger indoctrination program. That was my first big excitement. That was very prideful to get done with that. Probably my toughest school, and my most treasured moment, one of them, was Ranger school. That's that was a lot of, pat yourself on the back after that. And then sniper school was kind of stressful as well. They treat you like, it's a gentleman's course. I mean, they treat you like men because you're already experienced in the military to go to sniper school. But again, that was a very, I enjoyed those moments.
Have you ever gotten back together with the people that you had served with?
I have a good old boy from Kentucky named Nick Smith, and that is N-I-C, no K. And he lives in the hills of Kentucky. He's a great guy. I think we went to like a Hank Williams Jr. concert or something, Indiana, Evansville, Indiana. So I met him once. It's been too long. I need to see him again. That was probably 5 years ago. But I have 2 or 3 close buddies that live in New York. And since my sister lived in New York City, they made it even more convenient. So I've gone up there, and every time I'm up there, I see him.
Yeah.
So hopefully if I can at least catch some of my buddies once a year, that, as everyone gets married and has kids, that's good for me.
Did you have to do anything special that got you to the rank you achieved while serving in the military?
You just had, just execute and do everything as you're told from your superior command. You do a good job. You're always showing up on time. You're getting the job done. There's no back talk. There's no excuses. And good things will come,
What was the longest period of time that you were away from your family back home?
At any given time, I would say, well, probably the first 16 weeks was the first shock, 3.5 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Or say it might have been 18 weeks, but give or take, because I waited a week or two to begin, but I was already shipped off. And I almost cried, guys, before I headed up to the federal building in St. Louis, and they call it the MEPS building.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you, basically in civilian clothes, you go up there, you've done all your paperwork, you've already qualified for your contract that you're going to have, and you have to turn off your cell phone and give it to your parents. Man, I was pretty sad. Especially you guys would be very sad, because you live on your phones more than I do now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're on it all day. So you have to give all your stuff to your parents, or they have an amnesty box when you get to the basic training. You can't have any of that. I don't know how it is now. I mean, hopefully not, but no, the longest deployment I had was probably almost five months, so 20 weeks. We go by weeks. So 5 months, and then come home, and you usually get about 2 weeks or so of vacation. Yeah, they call it leave.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to like sleep or hang out in like uncomfortable spots?
Oh, all the time. Now, granted, we weren't like laying on like just 9 times out of 10. I'm not just out in the middle of a mountain in Afghanistan laying down. Like we'd build up a FOB, which is called a forward operating base, and we'd have some type of like a security parameter. Ranger school was designed for that. And you just sleep. You'd have a little sleeping bag, throw a poncho down so you don't get wet, or your poncho liner, and then you'd sleep in the rain, snow. I mean, yeah. But that's what the course is designed to do, is make you uncomfortable. But overseas, sometimes, depending on, the coolest I was in was probably high 20s, low 30s, and that was in northern Iraq in the wintertime. And then the hottest I was, or where I was at, was southern Afghanistan, Kandahar, which was probably about 115 to 120 dry heat. So basically like, Phoenix or Palm Springs, I guess, in the summer.
I know you've gone over multiple memories, but if you had to pick one, what would you think would be your most favorable memory that you enjoyed the most?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, let's just keep it to a mission. I remember it was unfortunate. We did take 2 KIAs. We lost 2 guys on one of these missions, but it was It was a big one, and it could have been a lot worse, and it's very unfortunate that we lost 2 guys. But a lot of us were lucky to kind of make it out, and, or, you know, that more casualties weren't induced. And it was a big mission that they flew in. There was rumored to have a bunch of enemy on the ground in bunkers in the middle of the mountains, and, you know, your first thought is, why would there be a bunch of random guys in the middle of the mountains? Well, that's because that's how they walk into Afghanistan on foot. And there's old trails like the Khyber Pass, which is from Pakistan to Afghanistan. Like, we were on some of those random trails. They're goat trails, and people walk through them. And we were in such a desolate area for this mission that at the top of a mountain ridge, there was an old anti-artillery gun on the top of a mountain. Well, how did that get there? That got there when we helped the Afghanis take out the Russians, or shoo the Russians away, I think in the 80s or something. So we airdropped all these guns in, and they haven't been in use in, you know, 30 plus years. So that was kind of a surreal experience, to go in the most desolate places of the world, to see you'd see little battery packs and stuff on the trail, like in like Chinese writing or Russian or whatever. But you couldn't see anybody, and that's because those people know the land and they can hide from us. So it was a little bit spooky as well, because we have all this gear and all this technology, heat-seeking, you know, radar detectors up, you know, in our choppers, and you still can't find these people because they're mobile, they're very skinny, they're fast, and those type of terrains. So we executed the mission, and it could have been a lot worse, but that was a very, you know, rewarding, humbling experience to get out of there.
What advice would you give to anyone that's thinking about joining the military?
You know, I would encourage it. I think it's a great experience if that's what they want to do. And if you already start to think about it, and then you start doing your research, and depending on what you want to do, I would pursue it. If you know, I think it's a good. Besides, you know, it separates you from a lot of, like, it's the coolest thing I've ever done with my life. I say that because, you know, we're all supposed to go to school. We're all supposed to go to high school, college, get a job, whatever. The military is just a whole different aspect, and it's a good perspective on how things are, you know, throughout the world and overseas. It's a very prideful thing, and it, you know, you can wear that badge of honor the rest of your life, and you share a bond with I think it's like less than 1% of the population. So I would encourage people, if that's what they want to do, absolutely.
So did you have like any relatives that joined the military, and like did they influence you? Were they an influence for you?
I have a cousin that's currently a commander. He lives in Annapolis, Maryland. So that's a Naval Academy. Now he's an intel officer there. So he was in the military, and then his brother was a Marine. Granted, I think he was stationed in Japan. So I talked to those guys a little bit, and I actually have another cousin who's just a year older than me, and we joined at the same time. And I was in 1st Ranger Battalion, and he was in 1st Special Forces Group up in Tacoma, Washington. So we were kind of 2 different entities, but again, great experiences, and we have a lot of great stories. So.
What trait that you have do you think helped you the most in the Army?
I don't know where I got this trait, but I guess you know, my dad he was never the type of dad that was hard on me to push me. Like some guys' dads are, and you've seen it in sports. Some dads are harder on their sons, and like you got to practice, and everybody's dad, I guess, when I have kids, they want their son, you know, a lot of guys want their sons to be the pro athletes and all this, and they live vicariously through their son. My dad was not that way, but I wouldn't trade him for the world, and it was awesome. But yeah, I guess I knew I would never quit, and I knew I could do it, but I was never really tested before I went. So my dad was, you know, I worked growing up for the family business, but I was never pushed hard to you gotta work all summer, and get a little allowance from grandma and grandpa, So I worked it a little bit, but you can't quit, and that's the mentality they want you to have. So if you have that inner animal instinct of just no matter what you do, you may not be the best in passing everything, and you may not be the top of your class, but if you just don't quit and show some heart, that goes a long way. We call it intestinal fortitude.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah, they'd scream at you and be like, "You need to have some intestinal fortitude and run a 40-yard dash and a 30-yard run."
Were most of your friends that were in the military, were they in the same rank as you, or were they like in a different division?
Good question. So most of my buddies were give or take around the same rank. So E4, E5. And then we were good friends. Like when I got to my sniper unit, we were good friends with like some E6s, staff sergeants. Usually the officers hang out with officers. It's like it's normal, and you'll get together for platoon barbecues, or everybody will go out together. But usually officers hang out with officers, enlisted with enlisted, just like an NFL football team, defense, offense. It's just kind of normal. But in the sniper unit, it's a lot more low key. We don't use a lot of rank. The military structure is more casual, because we're all kind of we're all a little bit veteran. We all have our Ranger tab. We're not on a line group where we're getting new privates all the time. We have to train. Like all the guys are pretty tenured, so it was a fun place to be. Kind of like a cool guy fraternity, I guess, if you will.
With all the gear that you had, how heavy do you think it was? When you
Oh
were
man, I think a combat load with your plates, your helmet, depending on how many rounds you're carrying, like ammo, how big your weapon was. I'd say every bit of it can range up to 40, 60 pounds. And that's why we're in the best shape of our lives. I mean, we trained every day with the rucksacks, and because we usually, on 9 times out of 10, if you're in Afghanistan, you want to infill in. So we'd fly, and we'd always land about 5K away. We go in kilometers in the military, so that's about a 3-mile march. So we don't like land our helicopter on the target and wake everybody up, and safer for us, safer for them. So yeah, it can get heavy.
What do you think was the coolest weapon that you ever shot?
The 50 cal on the Striker was pretty fun, but it's just like a video game. You have like a video screen and a joystick, and it moves the turret above you with the 50 cal. I'd say the most fun weapon I shot was a Carl Gustav, the big rocket launcher. It shoots 9 different rounds. You can only shoot it, so we probably didn't abide to that rule, but you can only shoot it so much because of the overpressure. So it shocks your inside so much. So you wear your gear, and you have the gunner, and then the assistant gunner loads it, and then he taps you on the helmet or whatever, and he says you're ready to shoot. And you hold it like right here on your shoulder with a little shoulder thing, and you can Google it, Carl Gustav. It's like M88, M83, and it shoots a giant rocket and blows up cars. It's great. It was fun.
To end, if you could do it all over again, would you have joined the military?
Absolutely, yes, sir. I would have. I'll be honest. At the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life after college, but I thought about it, and I was like, and I kept thinking about it, and I wanted to do something for myself. And the cherry on top is, you get all the guys are like, man, blah blah blah, did this, but at first, all my close friends knew I could do it, but I had some doubters. They're like, oh, he's played soccer, he's lazy, he didn't have to work, he's a preppy, whatever. You're gonna have your naysayers, but in a heartbeat, I'd do it, and sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want to do. Whatever branch you want to go to, or whether you want to be a ranger, you want to go be a Navy SEAL, basically the same thing, just a little more amphibious, water training. You can be a mechanical engineer on a nuclear submarine, for the smart guys.
Yeah.
That's out of my pay grade, but you can do whatever. So there's a lot of stuff to do in there, and you make good connections. Yeah, it opens up a lot of possibilities.
Alright, well, I think that's all we got.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Elias and class. I enjoyed that.